For a moment, there is only darkness. Not the darkness of fear, not the darkness of a storm, but the quiet darkness that comes just before a northern sunrise. You slowly open your eyes. Above you, thick wooden beams disappear into shadow. The scent of burning pine fills the air. Somewhere nearby, a fire still crackles softly inside a large stone hearth. Its warmth reaches you before the morning light does. Outside, the world remains almost completely silent. You lie still for another moment, listening. The gentle creak of timber, the faint whistle of wind slipping between the wooden walls, a distant wave meeting the rocky shore. Nothing more. No crowded streets, no merchants shouting, no temple bells, only the quiet heartbeat of the far north. It is the year 900 AD. You are standing on the edge of the Viking Age, long before maps divided the world as we know it today. Small communities like this one were scattered across the rugged coastlines of Scandinavia. Here, life was shaped by the sea, by the forests, by the changing seasons, and above all, by patience. The first pale light begins to enter through a narrow opening in the roof. It falls gently across rough wooden planks polished smooth by many years of footsteps. The longhouse around you slowly reveals itself. It is larger than you expected. Thick oak posts support the heavy roof. Animal skins hang neatly beside the walls. Bundles of dried herbs sway gently from overhead beams. Wooden shields, polished by years of careful use, rest quietly above carved benches. Everything inside the house feels practical. Nothing has been placed here by accident. Every object has earned its place. The fire burns lower now. An elderly woman quietly kneels beside it. Without speaking, she places another piece of split pine onto the glowing embers. Tiny sparks rise briefly into the air before disappearing into the smoke drifting toward the roof. She smiles gently as she notices you awake. There is no surprise in her expression, only kindness. Outside, a raven calls from somewhere above the village. Its deep voice echoes across the still morning before fading into the mist. Another answers from farther away. For a few moments, the birds seem to carry on a conversation of their own. You rise slowly. The floor beneath your feet feels cool. A thick wool cloak hangs beside the doorway. You wrap it around your shoulders before stepping outside. The morning air immediately greets you. Fresh, cold, remarkably clean. You breathe deeply. The scent of salt water mixes with damp earth, pine trees, and the faint smoke rising from nearby roofs. A thin blanket of mist drifts across the fjord. Beyond it, dark mountains rise silently toward the brightening sky. Their peaks remain hidden beneath low clouds. The village itself is still asleep. Only a handful of homes show signs of movement. A fisherman quietly unties a small wooden boat resting along the shore. He works without haste. The sea rewards patience. Beside another house, a young boy carries an armful of firewood toward the entrance. Each piece is stacked carefully beside the door. Winter may still be far away. But here in the north, people always prepare early. A dog stretches lazily near the shoreline before trotting toward its owner. Its paws leave fresh prints across the damp sand. Nearby, several sheep graze peacefully between patches of wild grass growing among scattered rocks. Their soft bells create a gentle rhythm carried by the breeze. You begin walking along a narrow path winding through the village. The houses are built almost entirely from timber. Their grass-covered roofs blend naturally into the surrounding landscape. From a distance, they seem less like buildings and more like part of the earth itself. Small streams of smoke rise from openings in the roofs, disappearing into the cool morning air. One doorway stands open. Inside, a family quietly prepares for the day. Fresh barley porridge simmers above the fire. A wooden spoon stirs slowly through the pot. The comforting aroma drifts into the morning breeze. Simple food, honest food, enough to begin another day. Farther ahead, you reach the shoreline. The fjord lies perfectly still. Its surface reflects the mountains so clearly that it becomes difficult to tell where the water ends and the sky begins. A single longship rests quietly beside a weathered wooden dock. Its dragon-headed prow faces the open sea. Silent, patient, waiting. For now, there are no warriors aboard. No sails catching the wind. Only a vessel built by skilled hands, resting peacefully between journeys. A fisherman pauses beside the boat. He kneels to inspect a carefully woven net. One small knot has come loose. Rather than ignoring it, he patiently repairs it before continuing. Out here, small details matter. A single broken knot can mean the loss of an entire day's catch. The first rays of sunlight finally reach the highest mountain peaks. Slowly, golden light begins descending toward the village below. The mist glows softly. The water sparkles. Even the weathered timber of the longhouses seems warmer beneath the morning sun. The village awakens one family at a time. A child laughs somewhere behind you. An axe strikes a log in the distance. A rooster announces the beginning of another day. Life here does not begin with noise. It begins with quiet purpose. Standing beside the calm waters of the fjord, you realize something. The people who lived here did not see themselves as figures from history. They were parents, builders, fishermen, farmers, storytellers, neighbors. They simply woke each morning, looked toward the sea, and began another ordinary day. And today, for just a little while, you will walk beside them. The village is awake now, not with loud voices, not with hurried footsteps, but with the quiet rhythm of another northern morning. A cool breeze drifts down from the mountains, carrying with it the scent of pine forests and the sea. Behind you, the fjord reflects the pale blue sky so perfectly that it seems almost endless. Ahead, smoke rises gently from the roofs of the longhouses. You follow the winding footpath toward the largest building in the village. Its heavy timber walls have darkened after years of rain, snow, and salt carried inland by the wind. The roof is thick with layers of turf. Tiny wildflowers have found places to grow among the grass above. From a distance, the building appears less like something constructed by human hands, and more like part of the hillside itself. The doorway is low. As you step inside, your eyes take a moment to adjust. The warmth surprises you. Outside, the air is crisp and cool. Inside, the great hearth has been burning since long before sunrise. Orange flames dance quietly beneath an iron cooking pot suspended from a sturdy wooden beam. Thin ribbons of smoke rise toward the opening in the roof before disappearing into the brightening sky. The room feels alive, not crowded, simply lived in. Long wooden benches line both sides of the hall. Sheepskins cover many of them, worn smooth by years of daily use. Simple chests rest beneath the benches, holding clothing, tools, and treasured family belongings. Nothing is ornate. Nothing is unnecessary. Everything serves a purpose. The walls are decorated with carefully carved shields, hunting spears, fishing harpoons, and polished wooden oars. Each object tells a story. A journey completed. A winter survived. A family protected. Near the fire, an elderly craftsman sharpens a small carving knife against a smooth whetstone. The gentle scraping sound blends with the crackling of the flames. He works patiently. There is no rush. A sharp blade earned through careful attention lasts far longer than one hurried into service. Nearby, a young girl carefully arranges wooden bowls upon a broad oak table. She counts them softly under her breath. 1, 2, 3. When she notices one bowl slightly out of line, she quietly adjusts it before smiling to herself. Across the room, a grandmother spins wool using a simple wooden spindle. Her hands move almost effortlessly. Twist, pull, wrap, again. The rhythm never changes. The spindle turns so smoothly that it seems almost hypnotic. Beside her sits a small child wrapped in a thick wool blanket. He watches every movement with wide, curious eyes. Without speaking, she places the spindle gently into his hands. His first attempt is clumsy. The thread slips loose. He looks disappointed. She simply smiles, then begins again. Patiently. In this village, skills are rarely taught with long explanations. They are passed quietly, through observation, through repetition, through time. The scent inside the longhouse slowly changes. The morning porridge has finished cooking. An older woman removes the heavy iron pot from above the fire with practiced confidence. Steam rises into the cool air beneath the roof. She adds a handful of dried berries gathered during the previous autumn. Their deep purple color spreads gently through the barley. The fragrance is warm, comforting, simple. Wooden bowls are filled one by one. No one begins eating immediately. Everyone waits until the oldest member of the household has been served. Only then do the quiet sounds of breakfast begin. Wooden spoons, soft conversation, the crackle of the fire. Outside, the wind brushes gently against the timber walls. Inside, the longhouse feels wonderfully protected. Safe, sheltered. You notice the incredible craftsmanship hidden within the structure itself. Massive oak beams fit together without a single iron nail in many places. Carefully carved joints lock each piece into the next. Every beam has been shaped by hand. Every curve follows the natural grain of the wood. The builders understood something deeply important. Rather than forcing the timber, they worked with it. The house stands strong because it respects the materials from which it was built. A raven lands briefly upon the roof. Its footsteps create the faintest sound overhead before it takes flight once more. No one inside reacts. The people here have lived alongside the sounds of nature all their lives. Birds, wind, rain, snow, flowing water. These are not interruptions. They are companions. An older man rises slowly from the table and walks toward the doorway. He pauses only long enough to pull his heavy wool cloak over one shoulder. Outside, another day's work is waiting. Fishing nets, firewood, boats, fields, animals. The tasks never truly end. Yet no one complains. The work itself has become part of life's quiet rhythm. You remain beside the hearth for another moment, watching the flames move, listening to the calm conversations surrounding you, feeling the warmth spread gently through the hall. In this place, greatness is not measured by wealth, nor by grand buildings, nor by monuments carved from stone. It is measured in shared meals, patient teachers, strong timber, warm fires, and the quiet certainty that everyone within these walls belongs. As you step outside once more, the cool northern air greets you again. The village stretches peacefully toward the fjord. The mountains remain standing exactly where they have for thousands of years. The sea continues breathing against the shore. And another beautiful Viking morning has only just begun. Stepping away from the warmth of the longhouse, you follow a narrow trail that winds gently toward the shoreline. The morning has fully arrived. The sun remains low above the eastern mountains, casting long ribbons of golden light across the calm waters of the fjord. The air is wonderfully crisp. Each breath feels fresh enough to wake even the quietest thoughts. Tiny droplets of dew still cling to the blades of grass growing between weathered stones. As you walk, your boots leave faint impressions upon the damp earth. The village slowly fades behind you. Ahead, the sea becomes everything. To the people who live here, the fjord is far more than water. It is their road, their marketplace, their source of food, their connection to distant lands. It provides almost everything needed for life. And in return, it asks only for patience, skill, and respect. The shoreline is already alive with quiet activity. Several fishermen kneel beside their boats, carefully checking ropes that have grown damp during the night. Their hands move confidently along each knot. Every loop is examined, every frayed strand replaced before it can become a problem. Out here, small details matter. The sea remembers every mistake. A young woman stands upon a weathered wooden pier, hanging freshly repaired fishing nets across smooth poles to dry in the morning breeze. Tiny drops of seawater fall back into the fjord below, creating circles that slowly spread across the glass-like surface. Nearby, an elderly fisherman carefully sharpens a small iron hook. His knife moves across the whetstone with slow, even strokes. Scrape, pause, turn, scrape again. The sound blends perfectly with the gentle lapping of waves against the dock. Nothing interrupts the silence. It simply becomes part of it. You kneel beside the water's edge. The fjord is astonishingly clear. Smooth stones rest beneath the surface, each one shaped by centuries of flowing water. Tiny silver fish dart between patches of waving seaweed before vanishing into deeper water. The sea appears calm today, almost welcoming. But everyone here understands that calm waters deserve the same respect as stormy ones. The weather in the north changes quietly. Without warning, a group of children wanders along the beach, collecting smooth shells and pieces of driftwood polished by countless tides. One little boy discovers a feather resting among the rocks. He holds it toward the sunlight before placing it carefully inside a small leather pouch hanging from his belt. To someone else, it might seem ordinary. To him, it is another small treasure from the sea. Further along the shore, several longships rest peacefully upon wooden rollers. Without their sails raised, they appear surprisingly graceful. Their curved hulls reflect softly in the still water. Each ship has been built from overlapping oak planks, fitted together with extraordinary precision. Running your hand lightly along the side of one vessel, you can still feel the subtle texture of the wood beneath layers of carefully applied pine tar. The scent is unmistakable. Rich, earthy, comforting. It speaks of forests, craftsmanship, and countless journeys across northern seas. A shipbuilder stands nearby, quietly replacing a single worn plank. He works alone, not because help is unavailable, but because this task demands complete attention. Every board must fit perfectly. Every wooden peg must hold securely. One poorly placed piece could become dangerous far from shore. He pauses occasionally to study the curve of the hull from several different angles. The ship teaches him what it needs. He simply listens. Overhead, a flock of seabirds glides effortlessly above the fjord. They rarely flap their wings. Instead, they ride invisible currents of air rising from the water below. For long moments, they seem suspended between sea and sky. Watching them, you begin to understand why so many Viking sailors trusted nature more than written instructions. The birds knew where fish gathered. The clouds hinted at changing weather. The wind whispered long before a storm arrived. Nature was never an enemy. It was a patient teacher. The tide slowly creeps higher against the shore. Not enough to notice immediately. Only after several quiet minutes do you realize the water has reached the footprints you left upon the sand. One by one, they disappear. The sea leaves no trace behind. A weathered wooden bench overlooks the widest part of the fjord. You sit for a while. There is no destination waiting. Only the quiet privilege of observing another peaceful morning unfold. Far across the water, sunlight finally reaches the distant cliffs. The dark stone turns a soft shade of gold before settling into warm gray once again. Mist lifts slowly from the surface, revealing forests that moments earlier had been hidden from view. Everything feels as though it is awakening together. The mountains, the sea, the birds, the village. Even the boats seem ready for another day. Yet no one hurries to leave. The fishermen know that the sea will still be here after breakfast. The shipbuilder knows there is wisdom in taking one careful step at a time. The children continue searching the beach with quiet curiosity. Life beside the fjord follows its own rhythm. A rhythm not measured by clocks, but by tides, by changing light, by migrating birds, by the turning of the seasons. As you rise from the bench and continue along the shoreline, the cool breeze brushes gently across your face once more. The village waits behind you. The open sea stretches before you. And somewhere beyond the horizon, countless stories remain waiting to be discovered. Leaving the quiet shoreline behind, you follow a narrow trail that disappears beneath towering pine trees. Almost immediately, the sound of the sea begins to fade. The gentle waves become distant. The cries of seabirds soften until they are little more than a memory carried by the breeze. Here, the forest has its own voice. The ground beneath your feet changes from smooth stones to a soft carpet of moss. Each step is almost silent. Needles from countless seasons blanket the earth in shades of deep green and rich brown. Tiny drops of morning dew still cling to the ferns growing beside the path. Whenever the breeze passes through the branches above, a few droplets drift gently downward, catching the sunlight before disappearing into the moss below. The air feels cooler here. Fresh resin rises from the pines. The scent is clean, earthy, almost sweet. It fills every breath with the quiet fragrance of the northern wilderness. For the people of this village, forests are far more than beautiful places. They are home to timber that will become houses, branches that will warm winter fires, berries gathered in late summer, mushrooms hidden beneath fallen leaves, medicinal herbs known only to those who have spent years walking these paths. The forest provides generously, but only to those who understand it. Ahead, an elderly woodsman walks slowly between the trees. Across his shoulder rests a small axe polished smooth by decades of careful use. He does not swing it carelessly. Instead, he pauses beside several pines, gently placing his hand against each trunk. He studies their shape, their age, the direction of their growth. Only after several quiet moments does he continue walking. Not every tree is meant to be cut. Some are still growing. Others shelter young saplings beneath their branches. Patience has taught him to take only what is needed. Sunlight filters through the forest canopy in long golden beams. Dust, pollen, and tiny insects drift lazily through the light, creating a scene that feels almost dreamlike. Nothing moves quickly. Even the shadows seem content to remain where they are. A squirrel darts across a fallen log before climbing effortlessly into the branches above. Moments later, it pauses to watch you from a safe distance. Its tiny ears twitch. Its tail flicks once. Satisfied that you mean no harm, it disappears deeper into the forest. Farther along the trail, you hear the gentle sound of flowing water. Not loud, not rushing, simply constant. The path leads you to a narrow stream, winding quietly between smooth granite stones. The water is so clear that every pebble beneath the surface can be seen with perfect clarity. Tiny trout rest in the slower pools, barely moving except for the gentle rhythm of their fins. A simple wooden bridge crosses the stream. Its planks have become silver with age. Each board bears the marks of countless footsteps. Farmers, hunters, children, travelers, all have crossed here before. As you pause at the center of the bridge, the forest seems to hold its breath. The only sounds are the stream below, and the whisper of pine branches swaying high above. You begin to understand why stories were so important to the people of the North. In places like this, where mist curls between ancient trees, where every shadow seems alive, it is easy to imagine unseen spirits watching quietly from beyond the branches. The Vikings respected the natural world, not because they feared every forest, but because they believed every place deserved respect. A weathered stone stands beside the trail. Its surface is covered with pale green lichen. No one remembers exactly how long it has rested here. Children sometimes climb upon it while gathering berries. Travelers use it as a place to rest. The forest slowly gives ordinary things extraordinary meaning. Nearby, two women fill woven baskets with wild blueberries growing beneath the pines. They speak softly, careful not to disturb the peaceful silence surrounding them. Every so often they stop to admire the sunlight dancing across the leaves. Their work never seems separate from the landscape. It simply belongs within it. The breeze grows slightly stronger. High above, the tallest pines begin to sway together. Their branches produce a deep, soothing sound unlike anything heard beside the sea. It is slow, steady, almost like the distant breathing of the forest itself. You close your eyes for a moment, listening, breathing, feeling the cool northern air upon your face. There are no walls here, no roads, no towers, only trees that have quietly watched centuries pass beneath their branches. As you continue deeper along the winding trail, the sunlight becomes softer. The forest welcomes you without a single word. And somewhere beyond the next bend, another quiet corner of the Viking world waits patiently to be discovered. The forest slowly opens behind you. The towering pines become fewer. The scent of fresh resin fades into the cool northern breeze. Ahead, a narrow trail leads gently back toward the village. From somewhere in the distance comes a new sound. A steady rhythm. Metal meeting metal. Not loud, not harsh. Just a calm, familiar heartbeat carried across the morning air. Tap, pause, tap, pause. You follow the sound. Soon, a small wooden workshop appears beside a rocky hillside. Its walls are dark with years of smoke. Bundles of charcoal rest beneath a simple roof, carefully protected from the rain. Outside, neatly stacked logs wait to become tomorrow's fire. Unlike the roaring furnaces of great cities far to the south, this forge feels humble. Quiet, almost hidden. Yet within these timber walls, some of the village's most valuable tools begin their lives. The blacksmith stands beside a stone forge. His sleeves are rolled back. His hands bear countless small scars collected over many winters. He greets the morning with a gentle nod before returning his attention to the glowing iron resting within the coals. The fire breathes softly. Orange embers pulse beneath a layer of dark charcoal. Each time the leather bellows moves, tiny sparks rise into the cool air like a brief shower of golden stars. A young apprentice operates the bellows with slow, steady movements. He has already learned an important lesson. The fire should never be rushed. Too much air, and the metal becomes brittle. Too little, and it never reaches the right temperature. Even the flames require patience. The blacksmith lifts the heated iron with long tongs. It glows a deep orange. Not yet white. Not yet ready. He studies it for a quiet moment before laying it upon the anvil. The first strike comes gently. A clear ringing note fills the workshop. Then another. The rhythm settles naturally. Strike, turn, strike, turn, pause, back into the fire. There is no violence in his movements, only precision. Outside the workshop, a pair of children sits upon a fallen log, watching with silent fascination. Neither speaks. The glowing metal, the drifting sparks, and the steady music of the hammer hold their complete attention. From time to time, the blacksmith smiles toward them without interrupting his work. Perhaps one of them will stand where the apprentice stands today. Many winters from now, finished tools hang neatly along one wall. Axes polished until they catch the morning light. Fishing hooks no larger than a fingertip. Knives with smooth birch handles. Simple hinges for heavy wooden doors. Nothing here is made to impress. Everything is made to last. You notice that a fisherman has arrived carrying a broken harpoon. Rather than asking for a new one, he quietly places the damaged tool upon the workbench. The blacksmith examines it carefully, running one finger along the crack, turning it slowly beneath the light. Finally, he nods. It can be repaired. The fisherman smiles. Both men seem equally pleased. Here, craftsmanship is measured not by how quickly something is replaced, but by how faithfully it can continue serving. Near the doorway, several pieces of bog iron rest inside a wooden crate. Collected from nearby marshes, they will one day become nails, blades, or farming tools. The journey from earth to iron is long. Long before the first hammer falls, countless hours have already been spent gathering, smelting, and preparing the metal. Every useful object carries an invisible history. The smell of charcoal mixes gently with pine smoke drifting from nearby homes. Warm iron, fresh timber, cool mountain air. Together, they create a fragrance that belongs only to this quiet corner of the village. A raven lands upon the roof. It tilts its head, listening to the ringing hammer below. For a few moments, the bird remains perfectly still. Then, with a single beat of its wings, it disappears toward the forest. The apprentice wipes a thin layer of soot from his forehead. His teacher notices. Without speaking, he slows the pace of the work. Not because the task has changed, but because the lesson has. A skilled craftsman does not simply teach hands. He teaches rhythm, confidence, observation. The iron cools gradually upon the anvil. Its bright orange glow fades to deep red, then brown, then black once more. The transformation feels almost magical. Only moments ago, it moved like soft clay beneath the hammer. Now it has become strong enough to serve another family for years to come. As you step back outside, the sound of the forge becomes quieter with every step. Soon it blends once again with the whisper of the wind through the pines, the distant call of seabirds, and the steady breathing of the fjord beyond the village. Another ordinary morning continues. Another quiet craft has shaped another small part of the Viking world. And somewhere ahead, the scent of salt water returns with the breeze, inviting you toward the next peaceful chapter of your journey. The sound of the blacksmith's hammer slowly fades behind you. Each careful strike becomes softer, until it disappears entirely into the morning breeze. Ahead, the path leaves the cluster of workshops and begins winding gently through open meadows. The sky feels larger here. The towering mountains no longer hide the horizon. Instead, broad fields stretch toward the edge of the forest, where pine trees stand like silent guardians watching over the valley. The grass is still damp from the night's cool air. Tiny pearls of dew sparkle in the sunlight. With every step, countless droplets catch the light before disappearing beneath your boots. The meadow seems almost untouched. Wildflowers bloom freely. Blue harebells sway beside clusters of white daisies. Bright yellow buttercups scatter across the hillsides like pieces of morning sunshine. Bees move patiently from flower to flower. Their quiet humming blends with the gentle breeze. Nothing competes with anything else. Every sound belongs. A narrow stream meanders through the valley. Its gentle curves seem unplanned, yet somehow perfect. The water moves slowly enough for smooth stones beneath the surface to remain clearly visible. Occasionally, a single leaf falls into the current. Without resistance, it begins its quiet journey downstream. You pause beside the stream. The water is so clear that the sky above appears to continue beneath the surface. Tiny insects skim across it, leaving delicate circles that slowly expand before fading away. A dragonfly lands briefly upon a reed. Its wings shimmer like polished glass in the morning light. Then, almost without warning, it lifts into the air once more. Nearby, a young shepherd quietly watches over a small flock of goats grazing peacefully along the hillside. He sits upon a weathered stone, carving simple patterns into a piece of birch wood with a small knife. His work is unhurried. Every few moments, he looks toward the animals. They wander only a little before returning to fresh patches of grass. The goats know this valley well. The valley knows them. A shaggy sheepdog sleeps beneath a lone birch tree. One ear lifts whenever a goat strays too far. Without opening its eyes completely, the dog rises, gently guides the wandering animal back toward the flock, then settles beneath the shade once again. Experience has made every movement effortless. Farther along the meadow, two women gather wild herbs into woven baskets hanging from their arms. They recognize every plant without hesitation. Yarrow, Angelica, Sorrel, juniper. Some will flavor tonight's meal. Others will become remedies for winter coughs or aching joints. Knowledge here is rarely written down. It lives in memory, in observation, in conversations passed quietly from one generation to the next. The breeze changes direction. Now it carries the faint scent of saltwater once again. The fjord is never far away. Even when hidden behind hills, its presence quietly shapes the land. Clouds drift lazily across the northern sky. Their shadows move slowly over the meadows, cooling one hillside before warming another. The changing light transforms the landscape from moment to moment. No two views are ever exactly the same. You continue following the stream until it widens into a small pond surrounded by reeds. The surface is almost perfectly still. Only a family of ducks leaves gentle ripples behind as they glide across the water. A pair of swans stands quietly near the opposite shore. Their white feathers seem almost luminous beneath the morning sun. They move with remarkable grace, disturbing the water only slightly. The shepherd eventually rises from his stone. He whistles softly. The goats immediately lift their heads. Without shouting, without rushing, the small herd begins following him toward another hillside where fresh grass waits. Watching them disappear over the gentle slope, you notice how naturally every part of the landscape works together. The forest provides timber. The sea offers fish. The meadows feed the animals. The mountains shelter the valleys from the harshest winds. Nothing exists alone. Everything supports something else. You find a fallen log warmed by the morning sun and sit quietly for a while. There is nowhere you need to be. No destination demanding your attention. Only the peaceful rhythm of another ordinary day unfolding across the Scandinavian countryside. The breeze brushes gently across the tall grass. Thousands of slender stems bend together before slowly standing upright again. The movement resembles waves rolling across the sea. Perhaps that is why the people here never truly separate the land from the water. Both breathe with the same quiet rhythm. As you stand once more and continue along the winding path, the meadow gradually narrows. Ahead, you notice smoke rising beyond a gentle hill. Not the dark smoke of a forge, nor the thin smoke of breakfast fires, but something softer, warmer, perhaps another home, another family, another quiet story waiting to be discovered. And with slow, unhurried steps, you continue toward it. The gentle meadow slowly disappears behind you. The narrow path bends once more toward the coast, where the scent of salt returns with every passing step. The air feels different here. Cooler, heavier with moisture. The breeze carries the distant cries of seabirds gliding above the fjord. As you crest a small hill, the shoreline comes into view again. This part of the village is quieter than the fishing docks you visited earlier. There are no nets hanging to dry, no baskets of freshly caught fish. Instead, great skeletons of ships rest upon sturdy wooden supports. Half-built longships stand silently along the shore, their curved ribs reaching toward the sky like the branches of ancient trees. Without their outer planks, they resemble living creatures patiently waiting to be completed. The shipyard smells wonderfully of fresh oak. Newly cut timber lies stacked in careful rows beneath simple wooden shelters. Nearby, barrels of pine tar stand sealed against the weather. Their rich, earthy aroma drifts gently through the cool morning air. A master shipbuilder kneels beside one unfinished hull. He does not begin working immediately. Instead, he runs his weathered hand slowly across the curve of a single beam. His fingertips pause at every joint, every bend, every smooth edge. He knows this vessel long before it ever touches the sea. An apprentice arrives carrying a bundle of wooden pegs. Not iron nails, wood, carefully carved from strong oak. Each peg has been shaped by hand. Each one is slightly different. The older craftsman selects them one at a time, turning each between his fingers before pressing it gently into place. There is remarkable trust in simple materials. The Vikings believed a ship should move with the sea, not fight against it. The wood expands with rain. It contracts beneath the summer sun. It breathes, just as the forest once did. Nearby, long strips of split oak soak quietly in shallow pools of seawater. Later, they will become flexible enough to bend gracefully around the hull. Nature itself assists in their work. Nothing is forced. Everything follows its proper time. A young boy watches from a respectful distance. His father notices his curiosity and quietly invites him closer. Together, they lift a smooth plank into position against the growing frame. The child smiles with quiet pride, not because the task is difficult, but because he has been trusted with even the smallest part of something important. Farther down the shoreline, another craftsman carefully brushes warm pine tar across the side of a completed vessel. The dark coating catches the sunlight, giving the wood a deep amber shine. The scent is strong, yet comforting. Generations of sailors would forever associate that fragrance with new journeys. The sea waits only a few steps away. Small waves roll gently onto the shore. Again, and again, and again. Their rhythm never changes. It becomes impossible to separate the sound of the water from the quiet movements of the craftsmen. Together, they form a single peaceful melody. A pair of gulls lands upon the prow of a finished longship. For several moments, they simply stand there, watching the village begin another ordinary day. One bird tilts its head curiously before lifting effortlessly into the wind. The other follows only a heartbeat later. You walk slowly around the largest vessel in the yard. Its dragon head has not yet been carved. Only the graceful shape of the bow suggests what it will someday become. The shipbuilder explains something quietly to his apprentice. Not with long speeches, only with gestures. A hand resting upon the timber. A finger tracing the curve of the hull. A patient nod. Knowledge here moves from one generation to the next almost without words. Beyond the shipyard, several women weave thick ropes from long strands of flax. Twist, pull, turn, repeat. The steady rhythm mirrors the spinning of wool you watched earlier inside the longhouse. Every craft in the village seems connected to another. The rope will secure the sail. The sail will carry the ship. The ship will bring timber, wool, fish, and stories home again. Nothing exists alone. The morning sun climbs a little higher. Its reflection dances across the calm fjord, scattering thousands of tiny points of light across the water. From where you stand, it almost appears as though the sea itself is made of glass. The master shipbuilder finally steps back from his work. He folds his arms quietly, not to admire his skill, but to study the balance of the vessel. He walks slowly around it once, then again, looking, listening. Even after many years, he knows that the ship will reveal small imperfections only to those patient enough to notice them. There is wisdom in that. Many things become clearer when we stop rushing to finish them. A cool gust of wind arrives from the open water. The unfinished sail hanging nearby lifts gently before settling once more. For just a brief moment, you can almost imagine the completed ship gliding silently across the fjord. Not racing toward battle, simply traveling beneath a wide northern sky, carrying families, trade, friendship, curiosity, and the quiet courage to explore what lies beyond the horizon. You remain at the shoreline for another peaceful moment, watching sunlight shimmer upon the water, listening to the soft creak of timber, breathing the scent of fresh oak and pine tar. The shipyard does not feel like a place where ships are built. It feels like a place where journeys quietly begin. The shipyard slowly disappears behind you. The scent of pine tar lingers for a while in the cool air before giving way once more to the softer fragrances of everyday village life. Wood smoke, fresh wool, drying herbs, a hint of warm bread carried gently upon the breeze. The footpath climbs a small rise before leading you toward a cluster of smaller homes standing just beyond the shoreline. Unlike the larger longhouses, these cottages feel quieter, more personal. Small vegetable gardens grow beside their walls. Bundles of onions hang beneath wooden eaves. Clay pots filled with herbs rest upon simple windowsills where they gather the morning sun. A narrow fence, woven from hazel branches, surrounds one of the gardens. Tiny white flowers bloom between rows of cabbage and leeks. Bees drift lazily from blossom to blossom, completely undisturbed by your presence. You pause beside an open doorway. Inside, the steady rhythm of another craft fills the room. Wood gently creaks. Thread slides softly across polished timber. A loom. The sound repeats with remarkable consistency. Forward, back, press, lift. Again. The house is warm without being hot. Sunlight enters through a small opening high in the wall, illuminating countless tiny fibers floating peacefully through the air. Bundles of dyed wool rest neatly upon wooden shelves. Soft gray, deep brown, cream, muted blue gathered from wild plants. Nothing is brightly colored. The northern landscape seems to have found its way indoors. A woman sits patiently before the loom. Her hands move with quiet confidence. She no longer needs to think about each motion. Years of practice have transformed movement into instinct. Every thread passes exactly where it should. One by one, they become part of something larger. A blanket, a cloak, a sail, perhaps all three. Nearby, a young apprentice carefully winds fresh wool around a smooth wooden spindle. She pauses from time to study the older woman's work. No lesson is spoken aloud. The loom itself becomes the teacher. Its rhythm, its patience, its quiet certainty. Against one wall stands a simple chest carved with flowing patterns inspired by waves and curling branches. Time has softened every edge. Generations have opened its lid. Generations have placed their most valued belongings inside. A folded cloak, a carved comb, a leather pouch, perhaps a keepsake from someone who sailed far beyond the fjord and safely returned. The fire crackles gently in a small hearth. Above it hangs a bundle of lavender and sweet gale, slowly drying in the warmth. Their fragrance fills the room with a calm, comforting sweetness that mingles beautifully with the scent of clean wool. Outside, the breeze brushes softly against the turf roof. The house responds with the faintest creak. Not a sound of weakness, a sound of life. Timber expands. Fibers settle. The building breathes with the changing weather. The weaver reaches for a new thread. For just a brief moment, sunlight catches the fine strands stretched across the loom. They glow like delicate lines of gold before fading once again into gentle shades of wool. You realize how much trust exists within this single craft. One thread alone is fragile, almost weightless, easy to break. Yet hundreds woven together become strong enough to keep a family warm through the longest winter. Perhaps communities are built in much the same way. One kind gesture, one shared meal, one quiet lesson, one patient conversation, thread by thread, until something enduring is created. A little girl quietly enters the room carrying a basket of freshly washed fleece. She places it beside the loom with great care. The older woman thanks her with nothing more than a warm smile. No reward is expected. Helping one another is simply part of the day. The loom continues its steady rhythm. Outside, a raven lands briefly upon the fence before taking flight toward the sea. The sound barely interrupts the peaceful silence. You step back into the cool northern air. Looking once more through the open doorway, you watch the loom continue moving. Patiently, gracefully, without hurry. Inside that modest house, no monuments are being built. No famous battles are being won. And yet, something just as important is taking shape. Warmth, comfort, home. As you continue along the narrow path, the village seems even more connected than before. The shepherd depends upon the weaver. The fisherman depends upon the shipbuilder. The blacksmith depends upon the charcoal burner hidden somewhere deep within the forest. Every quiet craft supports another, like threads crossing inside a loom. Each life strengthens the next. Ahead, the path curves gently toward higher ground. The breeze grows cooler. Somewhere beyond the hill, another peaceful corner of the Viking world patiently waits to welcome you. The path rises gradually. With every step, the sounds of the village become softer. The rhythmic loom, the distant hammer, the gentle voices drifting between the cottages. They remain behind, carried away by the breeze until only the quiet murmur of the wind remains. The hillside is covered with short grasses that sway gently beneath the northern sky. Scattered boulders rest among patches of purple heather, their surfaces softened by countless seasons of rain, snow, and moss. Some have stood here for thousands of years, long before the first longhouse was built, long before the first ship crossed the fjord. They have watched generations come and go without ever moving. As you climb higher, the view slowly opens before you. The fjord stretches like polished glass between towering mountains. The village appears wonderfully small from here. Tiny wisps of smoke curl lazily into the clear morning air. The longships resting along the shore resemble carefully carved toys placed upon still water. Nothing feels hurried. Everything feels exactly where it belongs. Near the crest of the hill, you notice a circle of weathered stones. They are neither grand nor imposing. Each one stands no higher than a person's waist. Lichen paints their surfaces in pale shades of silver and green. Wildflowers have grown freely between them. The place feels peaceful, almost sacred. No voices disturb the silence. Only the wind. An elderly man sits quietly upon one of the stones. A thick wool cloak rests across his shoulders despite the gentle warmth of the morning. His silver beard moves softly with each passing breeze. He is not working, nor does he appear to be waiting. He simply watches the landscape before him. After a few moments, he smiles and gestures toward the empty stone beside him. You sit. Neither of you speaks. For a while, words seem unnecessary. The silence itself feels complete. Far below, a fishing boat slowly leaves the shore. Its oars enter the water with almost perfect rhythm. Dip, pull, glide. Again. The sound never reaches the hill. Only the movement. The old man finally raises one hand toward the distant mountains. His finger traces the outline of the highest peak against the blue sky. For generations, these mountains have guided travelers home. Before maps, before written directions, people simply learned the shapes of the land. Every valley, every cliff, every river, the world became familiar through careful observation. A small breeze carries the scent of flowering heather across the hillside. Bees drift lazily from blossom to blossom. A butterfly settles briefly upon one of the ancient stones before lifting effortlessly into the sunlight. Everything here moves gently. Nothing competes for attention. You notice faint carvings upon one of the standing stones. Time has worn them smooth. Their exact meaning has long been forgotten. Perhaps they marked an important gathering place. Perhaps they honored those who came before. Or perhaps they simply reminded passing travelers to pause and appreciate the landscape around them. Not every mystery needs to be solved. Some are beautiful simply because they remain. The old man reaches into a small leather pouch fastened to his belt. From it, he removes a simple wooden flute. Its surface has been polished by years of careful use. He lifts it slowly. The melody that follows is quiet, gentle. It rises and falls like the breeze itself. There is no audience, no performance, only music offered freely to the open sky. The notes drift across the valley. Some seem to disappear among the pines. Others seem to linger above the fjord. When the melody ends, the silence that follows feels even more peaceful than before. You understand something in that moment. People often imagine the Viking world as one filled only with voyages, storms, and battles. Yet most days were nothing like that. Most mornings were quiet. Most afternoons were spent working patiently. Most evenings ended beside familiar fires. Life was built not upon constant adventure, but upon ordinary moments shared with family, neighbors, and the land itself. The old man rises slowly. Before leaving, he places one gentle hand upon the weathered stone beside him. Not as a ritual, simply as someone greeting an old friend. Then he begins the walk back toward the village. His footsteps are unhurried. The hill grows quiet once more. You remain a little longer, watching clouds cast slow-moving shadows across the mountains, watching sunlight dance upon the surface of the fjord, watching smoke rise peacefully from the turf-covered roofs below. The world feels wonderfully untroubled here. For a little while longer, there is nowhere else to be. Only this quiet hill, this gentle breeze, and another peaceful morning in the far north. Eventually, you rise from the ancient stones. The breeze is a little cooler now. Clouds drift slowly across the northern sky, casting gentle shadows that move silently over the valley below. From this height, the village seems almost untouched by time. The longhouses rest comfortably beside the fjord. Thin columns of smoke continue rising from their turf-covered roofs. The boats remain motionless upon the water, patiently waiting for the tide. It is difficult to imagine a more peaceful place. A narrow trail continues beyond the hill. Few footprints mark its surface. Perhaps it is used only by shepherds. or by those who simply enjoy walking where the mountains become quiet. You decide to follow it. The path climbs gradually through scattered birch trees, whose white trunks glow softly beneath the morning sun. Their leaves shimmer whenever the breeze passes through, producing a delicate whisper unlike the deeper voice of the pine forest below. Small wildflowers grow between the rocks. Tiny patches of purple thyme release a gentle fragrance each time your boots brush against them. The air feels wonderfully clean. With every breath, you notice something different. Cool stone, fresh moss, distant seawater, sun-warmed earth. It is a landscape that never overwhelms the senses. Instead, it quietly invites you to notice each detail. Far above, an eagle circles effortlessly upon invisible currents of air. It barely moves its wings. Patiently, it watches the valleys below before gliding toward the cliffs beyond the fjord. For a few moments, your eyes follow its graceful path until it disappears behind the mountain. The trail eventually reaches a broad, rocky overlook. Here, the land falls away sharply. Below, waterfalls descend from hidden streams high in the mountains, their white ribbons disappearing into forests before finally joining the fjord. Although they are far away, their steady murmur rises gently through the still air. The sound is soft enough to soothe rather than distract. Nearby, patches of hardy mountain grass sway among clusters of smooth granite shaped by countless winters. Lichen paints the rocks with quiet shades of silver, pale green, and soft orange. Nature has taken centuries to create these patterns. No two surfaces are exactly alike. You sit upon a broad stone warmed by the morning sun. It holds the heat gently, offering quiet comfort against the cool mountain breeze. For a while, nothing happens, and somehow, that feels perfect. Cloud shadows drift slowly across the valley. The fjord changes from deep blue to shimmering silver as the sunlight moves across its surface. A fishing boat leaves only the faintest ripple behind it before becoming almost impossible to distinguish from the water itself. Time seems different here. There are no bells announcing the hour. No hurried conversations. No sense that you should already be somewhere else. Only light, wind, water, stone, and the slow passing of another beautiful northern morning. As you continue along the ridge, you notice a small pile of carefully balanced stones. Each rock has been placed deliberately upon the next. Simple, stable. Someone paused here long ago and left this quiet marker behind. Perhaps it guided travelers through heavy fog. Perhaps it simply reminded them that others had walked this path before. You gently brush a little moss from the uppermost stone. Then continue your journey exactly as you found it. Some things deserve only quiet respect. A family of mountain goats appears upon a distant slope. They move confidently across steep cliffs that seem impossible to climb. Young kids follow close behind their mothers, occasionally stopping to investigate patches of fresh grass growing between narrow cracks in the rock. Watching them, you cannot help but admire the calm certainty with which they navigate the rugged landscape. They belong here completely. The mountains have shaped them, just as they have shaped the people living beside the fjord below. The wind grows a little stronger. It carries with it the unmistakable scent of the sea once again. Somewhere beyond the next ridge, the coastline continues northward toward countless hidden coves, quiet beaches, and forested inlets waiting to be explored. The Viking world is far larger than any single village. Yet every distant journey begins with places like this. A peaceful home, a familiar shoreline, a quiet morning beneath the mountains. You pause one final time before beginning the gentle walk back down. The view remains unchanged. The village still rests peacefully below. The fjord still reflects the sky. The forests still blanket the hillsides in deep green. Everything continues its quiet rhythm without asking anything from you except your attention. And perhaps that is the greatest gift these northern landscapes offer. Not excitement, not spectacle, but the gentle reminder that there is beauty in slowing down long enough to truly see the world around you. As you begin your slow descent from the ridge, the light changes almost imperceptibly. The brilliant blue sky remains above the fjord. Yet over the western mountains, a blanket of pale gray clouds drifts quietly across the peaks. No one in the village seems surprised. In this part of the world, the weather is as much a companion as the sea itself. It arrives without ceremony. It leaves just as gently. A cool breeze brushes against your cloak. Moments later, you feel the first tiny drop of rain upon your hand. Then another. The shower is so light that it barely disturbs the silence. The raindrops settle softly upon the heather, upon the pine needles, upon the weathered stones lining the narrow trail. Each drop catches a glimmer of light before disappearing into the earth below. The scent of the landscape changes almost instantly. The fragrance of damp moss rises from the forest floor. Fresh pine becomes richer. The air feels wonderfully clean. Every breath seems to carry the quiet freshness of the mountains. You continue walking without seeking shelter. No one else appears concerned either. Far below, a shepherd calmly gathers his cloak a little closer around his shoulders before continuing across the meadow. The goats continue grazing. The sheepdog barely lifts its head. Even the birds seem content to wait patiently beneath the branches of nearby trees. Here, gentle rain is simply another part of the day. The trail leads once more into the pine forest. Raindrops fall through countless layers of branches before reaching the moss below. Some gather upon emerald ferns. Others cling to delicate spider webs stretched between fallen branches. The webs sparkle like strings of tiny crystals. For a few moments, they appear more like works of art than the careful homes of patient spiders. A small stream you crossed earlier has already begun to change. Its gentle flow carries fresh rainwater from higher slopes. The surface dances with countless tiny circles as each new drop arrives. You pause upon the old wooden bridge. Listening. The forest has become quieter still. The birds have stopped singing for a while. Instead, the rain provides its own gentle melody. Soft taps upon leaves. A distant trickle of water. The occasional creak of an ancient pine swaying with the wind. Nothing more, nothing less. You notice an elderly woman gathering birch bark beneath a fallen tree. She selects only pieces that have already loosened naturally. She never cuts into the living trunk. The forest has taught her patience. There is no need to take what will soon be offered freely. The bark will become containers, perhaps kindling, perhaps writing material for someone many villages away. Even the simplest things are used with care. As the shower continues, thin ribbons of mist begin rising between the trees. The forest changes completely. Branches fade into soft gray silhouettes. The distant path disappears for a moment before slowly returning as the mist drifts onward. It feels as though the woods are breathing, not hiding themselves, simply changing with the weather. Ahead, a small family walks quietly toward the village. The youngest child laughs as a raindrop lands upon the end of his nose. His mother smiles but says nothing. His father adjusts a bundle of firewood resting across one shoulder. They continue home together at the same steady pace. No one hurries. There is no reason to. Rain has visited these forests for thousands of years. It has always found its way to the rivers. The rivers have always found their way to the sea. The rhythm never changes. Soon, the shower begins to fade. One by one, the raindrops become fewer. Sunlight cautiously returns through openings in the clouds. Golden beams slip between the pine trunks, touching the damp forest floor. Every leaf begins to shine. Every drop becomes a tiny mirror, reflecting the afternoon light. Far ahead, beyond the final line of trees, the fjord appears once again. Its surface glows with a soft silver light beneath the clearing sky. A faint rainbow forms above the distant shoreline. It is not bold, nor dramatic, only a quiet arch of gentle colors resting peacefully between mountain and sea. You stop for a final moment beneath the pines. The forest smells wonderfully alive. Fresh rain, warm earth, pine resin, flowing water. The shower has lasted only a short while. Yet somehow, the entire landscape feels renewed. You continue toward the village. The path is still damp beneath your boots. The air remains wonderfully cool. And somewhere ahead, the welcoming warmth of the longhouses waits once more, their hearth fires glowing gently against the fresh northern afternoon. The gentle rain has passed. The clouds continue drifting eastward, leaving behind a sky washed clean by fresh mountain air. Tiny droplets still cling to every blade of grass. Whenever the sunlight reaches them, they sparkle like countless tiny pieces of crystal scattered across the valley. The village has become brighter. The roofs glisten softly. The timber walls of the longhouses appear richer in color after the rain. Even the distant mountains seem closer now, their outlines sharper beneath the clear northern sky. You continue walking along the winding path toward a broad meadow lying between the forest and the fjord. The afternoon has arrived quietly. The warmth of the sun is gentle rather than strong. A cool breeze continues drifting inland from the sea, keeping the air fresh and wonderfully comfortable. Several families are already working together in the open field. No one appears hurried. There is laughter, quiet conversation, long pauses filled only with birdsong. Bundles of wild grasses have been gathered into neat rows across the meadow. These will dry beneath the afternoon sun before being stored for the colder months ahead. Winter always feels distant in summer, yet everyone here prepares for it long before the first snow arrives. Preparation is simply another form of peace. An older farmer slowly lifts a wooden rake across his shoulder. Its smooth handle has become polished after many years of use. Walking beside him is his granddaughter, carrying a much smaller rake crafted especially for her. She proudly copies every movement, sometimes perfectly, sometimes not. The old man never corrects her immediately. Instead, he smiles and allows experience to become the teacher. Nearby, several women spread freshly cut herbs across wide linen cloths laid upon the grass. The afternoon breeze moves gently through the leaves. Juniper, yarrow, mint, wild thyme. Soon they will be dried and carefully stored inside wooden chests for the coming winter. The fragrance fills the air with a quiet freshness unlike anything found inside the village. A young boy kneels beside a fallen birch log where several mushrooms have appeared after the morning rain. He studies each one carefully before placing only a few into his woven basket. His mother watches from nearby. She nods with quiet approval. The forest offers generously, but only those who learn patience know which gifts to accept. You continue farther into the meadow. Butterflies drift lazily above patches of purple heather. Honeybees move from flower to flower with tireless dedication. Their gentle humming rises and falls with the breeze, becoming another peaceful layer within the afternoon soundscape. Above, white clouds move slowly across the endless northern sky. Their shadows travel across the valley like enormous silent ships sailing over green fields instead of water. Every few minutes, the sunlight changes. One hillside glows brilliantly while another rests beneath cool shade. The landscape is never truly still. It simply moves so slowly that only careful eyes notice. Near the edge of the meadow stands a small wooden drying rack. Freshly caught fish hang neatly beneath its roof, protected from direct sunlight while the cool coastal breeze passes gently around them. The scent of salt lingers faintly in the air. Nothing is wasted. Everything has its season. Everything has its purpose. An elderly woman sits nearby repairing a wicker basket. One reed has broken near the handle. Rather than replacing the basket, she patiently threads a fresh strip through the old weave. Her hands move almost automatically. Twist, fold, pull, tighten. The basket slowly becomes whole again. Across the meadow, two brothers gather smooth stones from a narrow field. They stack them carefully along a low boundary wall that has slowly grown taller with every passing year. No one expects the wall to be finished today. Perhaps not even this summer. Some work belongs not to a single afternoon, but to many generations. The breeze grows warmer for a little while. From somewhere near the shoreline comes the distant call of a horn. Not a warning, simply a signal. A fishing boat has returned safely to the dock. Several villagers glance briefly toward the fjord before continuing their work. They know there will be time later to greet the returning crew. Nothing here competes with the rhythm of the day. You find yourself beneath a solitary oak, standing proudly at the edge of the meadow. Its broad branches cast welcome shade across the grass. You sit beneath it. The earth is soft after the rain. The scent of damp soil rises gently around you. Looking across the valley, you begin to notice how every quiet task is connected. The herbs gathered today will flavor winter meals. The dried grass will feed animals beneath deep snow. The repaired baskets will carry autumn berries. The stacked stones will protect next year's fields. The fish drying by the shore will nourish families when the sea grows too rough to sail. Nothing feels separate. Every small act quietly prepares for another season yet to come. A pair of swallows suddenly sweeps low across the meadow. They twist effortlessly through the warm afternoon air before climbing high above the village. Their wings catch the sunlight for only a heartbeat. Then they disappear beyond the rooftops. You remain beneath the old tree for a few peaceful moments longer. The village continues its quiet work. The mountains stand patiently beyond the valley. The fjord reflects drifting clouds like polished silver. The afternoon passes without hurry. And somewhere beyond the fields, the scent of fresh bread begins to rise once again from the longhouses, promising another peaceful evening soon to come. The afternoon slowly begins to soften. The warm light that has rested upon the meadows all day now turns to shades of amber and gold. Long shadows stretch across the valley. The mountains, which stood bright beneath the midday sun, slowly become deep blue silhouettes against the western sky. The village knows this rhythm well. There is no signal, announcing the end of the day. No bell, no command, only light itself, quietly reminding everyone that evening has arrived. You begin walking back toward the shoreline. The narrow path feels familiar now. Every turn, every weathered stone, every pine tree has become part of your journey. The longhouses welcome their families home one by one. Smoke rises gently from the roof openings. Warm firelight begins to glow inside. The comforting scent of freshly baked barley bread drifts through the cool evening air, joined by the aroma of smoked fish, wild herbs, and simmering stew. Children return from the meadows carrying smooth stones, feathers, and small treasures collected during the day. A shaggy sheepdog trots happily beside them, pausing now and then to glance back toward the hills before continuing home. Near the shoreline, the fishermen secure their boats for the night. Each rope is tied carefully. Each oar is returned to its familiar place. Tomorrow's journey begins with tonight's preparation. The master shipbuilder walks once more around the unfinished longship. His hand rests briefly against the smooth oak hull. He says nothing. There is no need. The sea will still be here tomorrow. The ship will be ready when the time is right. As the sun sinks lower, its final light paints the fjord with brilliant shades of copper and gold. The water becomes so still that the mountains appear to stand both above and below the horizon. For a few quiet moments, the world seems perfectly balanced. A flock of seabirds glides silently across the glowing sky before disappearing toward distant cliffs. Their silhouettes grow smaller until they become impossible to distinguish from the evening light. The first evening star appears, then another, and another. Darkness does not arrive suddenly in the north. It settles gently across the land, almost like a soft wool blanket laid carefully over the valley. Oil lamps begin to glow behind the small windows of the longhouses. Their warm amber light flickers softly against the timber walls. Laughter drifts briefly through an open doorway before fading into peaceful silence. Inside one home, an elderly storyteller gathers several children around the central hearth. The flames dance quietly as another old tale begins. Perhaps it speaks of distant voyages, perhaps of ancient kings, or perhaps it tells the simple story of a fisherman who always found his way home by following the stars. Outside, the village grows wonderfully quiet. The forge has fallen silent. The looms no longer move. The axes have been carefully stored away. Only the gentle crackle of hearth fires and the endless whisper of the fjord remain. You walk to the end of the weathered wooden pier one final time. The boards creak softly beneath your feet. The water below reflects the first stars with astonishing clarity. Tiny ripples carry their light slowly across the surface before allowing it to become still once again. Looking upward, the night sky unfolds above the mountains. Thousands of stars stretch from horizon to horizon. Without the lights of the modern world, the heavens feel impossibly close. The same stars watched over these villages more than 1,000 years ago. The same constellations guided sailors across unknown seas. The same moon